I think we're in business. I think so. So we moved. We were trying to do the YouTubes, and that wasn't going to happen for us today. So we're going to do it this way. Hi, everybody. I hope that you can see me. I'm waiting to see some of you comment, but I think we are officially live in our Holistic Healer Facebook group. Celine is there. Dina's there. Nicole's there. Christy's there. Yay. And thank you for following me around. I don't know what to tell you, but this is going to be great. And then it'll be right here. You can come back and watch it later, or if you have to, take a break for a little bit and come back. Can you guys hear me okay? Just comment and say, yes, I hear you, or no, I don't hear you, so I can make sure that my sound situation is going to be all right. Can you guys hear okay? Can you hear? Jackie, can you hear me? Kirsten, can you hear me? Lisa, perfect now? Okay, good. We are in business. Okay, we're good. So let me get my notebook and all my notes. Okay, so welcome. This is a gift. This is what I foresee probably as a session 1 of psychic development basics. This is an introductory class as a gift to you guys at your request, but also because I think the timing is really right. And one of the things, since you guys are holistic healers, right? You guys are people who are wonderful. Thank you for the feedback. I can see all your comments now. Super, super helpful. Okay. And so since you guys are working with clients, if you're not now, you will be at some point, right? That's your intention, is to bring your healing work to others, however you choose to do that. I think talking about building your psychic senses and understanding your clair abilities. We're going to talk about all the clairs today, right? The clairs, clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairalliance, clairsentience, these are your gifts, your gifts from spirit. At least the ones that we mostly talk about are the clairs. There are other gifts of the spirit, and I'm going to talk about that too, and share kind of my own journey and my own awareness of what my gifts are and how I came to understand what my gifts are. For me, the spiritual gifts run in the mother line. So most of what I know about medicine and aromatherapy, other than training in this lifetime, comes from a lineage down my father's side. My father's mother and grandmother and great grandmother were medicine women on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean. Most of you know this, but just some of you are new, some of you don't know. And so they really were indigenous medicine women. There are people who used to take boats for weeks to get, especially to my grandmother. My grandmother was the most powerful of them all. My great grandmother, I should say. My grandmother inherited some of the gifts, but my grandmother also inherited war. And because our family's livelihoods were decimated in World War II, it wasn't really, her life really wasn't spent as a life of magic. My great grandmother's life was, her whole life was spent as a healer. And so they were more focused on using their intuition to create medicine for people. But I would say more of the channeling gifts, my ability to hold space as a medium, my ability to channel information, my ability to engage my clair senses is from my mother's side. And on my mother's side, the gifts are very pronounced and very profound, and everybody's gifts are different. So you kind of have to wait until you're older to see what your gifts are. And so we're going to talk about all those gifts today and kind of see what are your gifts. And I'll tell you, my gifts are changing. My gifts are changing this year. So what I love it is when I hear people say things like, oh, well, I'm clairaudient and that's my soul gift. And I'll just, that's all I can do is hear. And I'm thinking, like, you need to hold space for the fact that spirit will want to work through you in different ways over the course of your lifetime based on the work that you're doing and what your personal goals are. So I'm becoming, and we can talk about this if it's interesting to you, I'm becoming very clairvoyant. I've never been really a seer. I've always been extremely clairaudient. I can hear voices. I can hear very subtle sounds, almost like animal senses. But I haven't been super clairvoyant. I lost my sight, and we're going to talk about that too. I lost my sight almost 10 years ago when I was diagnosed with MS. I was diagnosed with an eye condition that basically decimated my optical nerves. And so I lost my vision first in my right eye for almost 6 months, and then that slowly came back, and then I lost my vision in my left eye for almost 6 months, and then that came back. And so I was legally considered blind. I couldn't drive during that time. It was a very tricky time in my life, but a huge blessing. And I will tell you, when spirit strips you of one of your abilities to sense the world, when it takes your hearing, or it takes your sight, or it takes your sense of taste, or it takes your touch away, it heightens your other senses. And so one of the things I want you to think about is, if you could set an intention to have one of your senses heightened, which one would it be? Because in hindsight, I will tell you that I would have chosen to have my height, or my sight heightened. I would have chosen to have my height heightened too. I don't think that's one of my soul gifts. But I would have chosen to have my sight heightened. I would have picked that. And it ended up being the gift that was chosen for me. So anyways, we're going to talk about all of that today. So we smudged a little bit. Let me just smudge one more time super quickly. I'm going to tell you kind of a little bit high level what's on my mind. Just because if any of it isn't super interesting to you, we don't have to talk about everything tonight. I can focus more on your questions. But I want to share with you what I intended to talk to you about based on my own preparation for tonight. Okay, so there's a concept, there's a couple concepts I want to talk to you about. One of them is cosmic ordering, which is actually a concept that was developed by a woman who did a lot of interesting work in the area of the law of attraction. I don't necessarily use the term cosmic ordering the way she did. She talks about being able to like place an order with the universe, and the universe fulfills your order, and that's how you manifest things. But cosmic ordering is a topic I want to talk to you about in a slightly different context. So I'm going to say something that's pretty crazy. And I also want to acknowledge most of you are psychic. So I'm not talking to like beginners. I'm talking to people who have, in some cases, very developed spiritual gifts. And I'm also talking to some of you who may think that you don't have a developed spiritual gift yet. So I think that there's something in what I'm going to share with you today that will appeal to both sides of that audience. We're just getting started, so don't worry if you're just joining. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is this, but it might be a little surprising to you. I actually don't think that anyone needs to talk about psychic development. And that's a surprising statement to make. When I was 17 or 18, I took a class called Psychic Development. And the woman I took the class with is still a friend of mine. I mean, she's a great person and a great teacher. But I've shared this perspective with her, and she agrees with it. Like, you know, even teachers, our own thoughts about things evolve over time, right? I actually think, looking back, she taught some fun techniques, right, about how to expand, how to open your third eye, and how to project visions. And I'm going to share some of those techniques with you tonight, because why not, right? So Carmelina took a similar class, right? I will tell you, and I with no disrespect to her at all, it really didn't help me very much, which is why I'm not going to spend too much time tonight giving you little exercises to do. I'm going to spend time with you tonight showing you what does work, okay? Because there are tricks, there are tips, there are portals that you can open to, and it might surprise you. Some of them are through sacred geometry. So we're going to be working with sacred geometry a little bit tonight. Sacred geometry is actually your best. This doesn't look very nice because the lighting is so bright right now, but this is actually a very beautiful, clear quartz cube. Sacred geometry and sound are doors that you can open, and spirit just walks right on in. Let me say that again. If you want to invite spirit into your life to speak with a louder voice, sound and sacred geometry are the two most powerful tools you have at your fingertips to attract them and to be able to communicate with them. So we'll talk about that tonight too. And then what I want to say is, if this is interesting to you, we'll see how far we get tonight. We can do part 2. I mean, I could do a beautiful guided meditation for you on each one of the platonic solids, and I would be happy to do that for you. So I think if we, let's see how far we get tonight in our discussion and in our meditation, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to talk about cosmic ordering. We're going to talk about preparing to receive psychic information. And we're also going to talk about why I think most people don't or aren't able to use their gifts. think there's very specific reasons why people have gifts and either can't access them or choose not to access them. So I want to get into that too. I'm going to teach you a trick tonight called Cut the Apple to teach you how to use your psychic screen. So that's going to be fun. I think you'll really enjoy that. I'm going to talk to you about the best crystals to use for psychic development tonight. A few of them we have in stock, a few of them we don't. So what we don't have, I just want to send you on a quest to go and find them for your own collection. So I thought that would be fun for us to talk about what stones to work with, and also what essential oils, what herbs to work with. And then if we do a part 2, I would want to talk to you about sacred sound and the frequencies, the megahertz that will open and attune and align your upper chakras. There are very specific megahertz and very specific frequencies, like the solfeggio frequencies, for example. We're not going to have time to get into that tonight, but if you wanted to learn about what those frequencies are and how to use them, you can use the solfeggio frequencies for physical healing. You can use it to clear and align your chakras. You can use it to manifest. And so that might be another fun kind of bonus session for us to talk about too, right? Okay, good. So all the things. Well, Kara, it's a great question, right? Kara says, how do we teach our children so they grow up with this being their norm? I think we're already doing it, right? Like, it's not weird in my house to talk about intentions or to talk about manifestation or even to talk about healing or Reiki or frequency or singing bowls or tuning forks. I mean, these are all, if you say these things in front of my kids, they know exactly what these things mean. So I think it's about, for a long time, we tried to keep metaphysical work among adults, you know what I mean? And like, oh, at some point when the kids are ready, and it's like, you know, the kids, here's what you have to remember about kids. And Harry Potter did help, Melanie. I have to agree with that. But here's the thing. Kids have seen God more recently than you have. Your kids have seen the face of God, however you think of that, more recently than you have. So they are much more in tune with the divine on many levels than adults. We just talk down to them and pretend like this is too much for them. The sad thing is they're probably looking at us and going, it's too much for them. They're too old and crusty and cynical now. You know, it's like, it's just a matter of perspective, I would say. Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else that I want to talk to you about today other than this. I think this will get us pretty far. And then I'm going to talk to you about good, safe protocols for psychic work, because I would be remiss if I didn't teach you a little bit about how to do this work in a safe, protected way, because I think that's really important too. Yeah, see, Annette says, you know, we talk about it in our family. They know it's our kitchen table talk only. So, yeah, and I tell my kids, you know, like, hey, sometimes I will download or channel little bits of information for them, and I'll share it, and then I'll say, but you know, you don't have to go share that with everybody, right? Right? Like that can just be mama's little gift to you, but we don't really have to go and maybe, you know, put that on a t-shirt and wear it to school tomorrow. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah. So I want to give you some protocol, because I see a lot of people, especially with the advent of things like YouTube, it kind of scares the shit out of me, because I see people making videos for, you know, different things, and they're not covering protocol. And protocol is everything when it comes to magic. You can't get lazy and skip some steps, because, you know, you can end up opening a door that is very difficult to close. And I just don't want anybody to be in that kind of like psychically unprotected space. All right. Are you ready? I'm ready. And then I have all your questions. And so we're just going to try to get through as many questions as we can. We have quite a bit of time. We do have new moon at 6. So I'm going to, is it 6 or is it 5? I should probably check that really quickly. Team SG, is it 6 or is it 5 p.m. for new moon today? I think it's 6 o'clock. Let me just confirm on my calendar, because I want to make sure I have a little bit of time to prep with some technical difficulties. So I want to make sure I'm not, do we have a timestamp on new moon? 6 o'clock? Perfect. Okay, great. So we'll go here till 5-ish, and then we'll start new moon at 6. And then Of Light and Shadow has me from 7 to 7:30. And then I'm going to go sit in a dark room. Okay, thank you, Maria. So you have me tonight until 10:30 Eastern time, I think. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so let's begin at the beginning. Okay. So the first thing, I want to jump right in with this concept of psychic ordering or cosmic ordering. There's a couple of things kind of like just to set the stage. You're very welcome, by the way. I think this is a fun conversation and a fun topic. And feel free to jump in with questions as I'm talking. I'm going to talk to you, but I'm going to keep an eye on the feed. So number one thing I want to tell you is it is a very Western idea that we have to somehow do something, okay, in order to earn or develop our psychic gifts. Everybody comes into this lifetime. This is my personal opinion, but it's based on a lot of experience. Everybody comes into this lifetime with a strong intuition, okay? And thanks, you guys. Everybody comes in with strong intuition. Not everybody can activate it. And honestly, what I'm about to tell you might be some of the most helpful information I give you through this whole thing. But, you know, this is, again, it's a little bit of stuff I wish I had heard along the way, because it wouldn't have fixed anything for me if one of my teachers had told me this, but it would have saved me a lot of years of not understanding and feeling really frustrated, okay? So here's a cosmic truth. Not everybody vibrates at the same frequency. And you know this, okay? So you meet people all day, every day, right? Even your own family. Some people are really easy to be around, and you're bummed when you don't get to be around them anymore, because they're like fountains of energy. They have a lot to give, and they are exciting to be around because their frequency is high. They may not be happy all the time, but they also don't get stuck. It's like you just feel like when you're around them that there's more energy available for you. But that's because they are so plugged in to that cosmic flow of information that they have enough. They're able to pull enough up of that energy to supply everything that they need, and they have enough left over to create their own fountain. That's the goal. Okay, the goal is to have such incredible energy around you and available to you and accessible through you that not only is it always enough for you, but there's always enough as well for anybody else who needs it. And it's true. Teresa is mentioning Nikola Tesla's quote, you know, that if you want to understand the universe, I'm going to botch it, but this basic upshot is, if you want to understand the universe, think of frequency and sound and energy, because that is what the universe is made up of. We're just one vibrating macrocosm, and everything's moving all the time. And so, well, and I appreciate that, you know, and I feel like a fountain, and some days are better than others, but I always do have enough left over for other people. I have cultivated what I'm teaching you today well enough that even if I'm physically not feeling well, I still know how to tap in and pull up enough to meet my own needs, and also to have enough for people around me. No matter how much of a fountain you become, there are some people who will still drain you. I'm related to some of them, so it makes it really challenging, because it's not like you can always avoid the people who completely drain your life force. And there are people who do that consciously, and people who do that subconsciously or you know, unconsciously, right? Some people know they're a drain, and it's almost like that they don't care. And some people aren't even aware that they're a drain. But when they come to me as a client, they're always like, God, I wish I had more friends, or my family doesn't want to seem to spend time with me. What can I do? And we always end up getting back to this topic of, how do you raise more energy? Okay. So the number one reason that not everybody, even though everybody has access to psychic gifts, the number one reason that a lot of people don't manifest their psychic gifts is that they are not able to raise enough energy to do the work. And I want you to think of it this way. Let's work with a different metaphor. It would almost be like setting up beautiful ingredients to cook a meal, but then finding out that your gas doesn't work or your electricity doesn't work. No matter how beautiful the ingredients are, no matter how ready you were to make that meal, no matter how many people are waiting to eat that meal, without the power that you need to prepare that meal, that's not going to happen. Yes, narcissists are vamps, but lots of people are vamps, right? And it's usually, you know, people who are doing their soul work are not energy vampires, because they're very conscious of the energy that they bring to a space, and they're also very attuned to their environment. So awake people are sensitive to the body language and the feedback loop of energy around them, and they can sense when they're taking more than they're giving. And they usually know how to calibrate for that. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can tell if I'm talking to someone and it's not reciprocal and I'm maybe taking more. It doesn't happen very often because I'm so conscious of it. But if I'm maybe taking more from the meal than I brought, I try to like stop myself, check in with the energy flow, see where I'm needed, and not talk as much. Because one of the ways that we drain people of energy is by talking too much. It's one of the fastest ways to drain people. That's right. Okay. So in order to really develop your psychic abilities, this is one of the things we're going to work on today. You're going to have to learn how to cultivate an energy reserve. And I don't know if anybody's ever told you that, but like I said, in all my years and all my work, I've never heard anybody talk about this subject. They've always given me kind of like exercises, right? To like, you know, imagine my third eye or open the ajna and, you know, attend to the indigo ray and all these things. But the reality is you can do that shit all day long. If you don't have enough energy to sustain that flow, that frequency through which psychic information is going to come to you, it's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen today, and it won't happen next week, and it's not going to happen 15 years from now. And here's why. Are you ready? Here's the reason. It's for your own protection. I sometimes imagine what the spirit guides think, because they hear us all day long going, I want, you know, better psychic abilities, and I want to be able to channel, and I want to be able to see dead people, and I want to be able to, you know, I'll do all these things. And they're probably looking back at least some of us saying, you're not there. You know what I mean? Like, and the irony is when you do see people who like can't cultivate the gifts and you really like look a little closer, usually what you see is they at the same time they're wanting to develop those psychic gifts, they're also really wedded to their illness or their disease, right? We talked about this with the shadow class, right? Like they like to talk about their disease. They like to talk about their illness. They're very happy being in conflict in relationships. They allow themselves to be in a low vibrational space over a span of years. And so it becomes almost impossible to be able to lift that and to create enough of an energy flow to be safe while they channel. Okay, so that's the number one thing that I would want to help you with tonight, is because I actually would like to open the fountain tonight. I would like to do an exercise with you to summon and open that flow of energy, just to allow you to feel it. I think we can do it in a really profound, powerful way in a container here, and see how it feels to you. See if you feel the difference when you're standing in that flow. But you cannot simultaneously be in unhealed space, meaning not taking responsibility for your energy or trying to fix your life, and go over here and be a powerful psychic. It's not going to happen. Okay, well, Kara, that's a great question. So Kara said, who gets to decide when you're ready? I will tell you, I don't think it's our decision, but I do think it's our awareness. There comes a time where you start to realize that you're receiving more information. And it comes as a surprise. Like, I'm just like hearing little things, or all of a sudden I'm seeing. My clairvoyance, by the way, is coming in these flashes where I'll be looking over to one side of the room and it's all of a sudden like I'm not in the same room. I'm all of a sudden in a totally different space. And then as soon as the screen switches, I'm back again. And it's happening 2 or 3 times a day right now, all different times of the day. And so that is a new gift. And I don't know the places that I'm being shown or the people that I'm being shown. So it's a very interesting process. But so you might see little bits and glimmers like, oh, I'm starting to hear a little bit more, I think, or I'm starting to see a little bit more. What I would recommend is, if you really want to build your skills, open the flow to energy. Get into a space of cosmic ordering, meaning all you're doing when you build your psychic skills is you are stepping into a flow of energy that's already there. But you may not have been able to step into it before, either because you didn't know consciously how to do that, or you weren't prepared to do that. And so if the time is right for you, which honestly, events line up in our lives with synchronicity in very interesting ways all the time. So I think if you're here, this is probably something that you're meant to be receiving, either for yourself or maybe it's for someone else in your life who needs to know this as well. So Tammy's asking, can a conscious or conservative mind stop psychic abilities? I see auras upon awakening and then they go away. Yeah. Well, now what do you think happens to kids, right? Like kids come in and they're still so close to God, right? That their psychic gifts are usually much more pronounced. Kids will talk about their past lives up until about the age of 3, and then it clicks off. And it clicks off for every kid at a different age. It clicked off for Zoe at 3. It clicked off for my son a little bit sooner than that. So in my experience, the more empathic and psychically gifted your kids are, the longer they're going to talk about their past lives. But at a certain point, what I think happens is they tell a story to someone who gives them that look, and all of a sudden they stop telling the stories. We get socially conditioned out of sharing our psychic visions. And so at a certain point, the kids just stop talking about them. Interesting. So Cindy Colmiller has a great tip here. She said one of her teachers told her to take a quartz sphere and hold it when she's feeling energetic, active, and then charge it for when her energy is low. So like I'm taking that to mean, Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, like in the good times, work with it right when your energy flow is strong and when you've got a lot of energy around you. And then when your energy is low, you can use it to return your own energy to you. I think that's a brilliant concept, actually. I really like that a lot. Okay. Yeah. So, and with my kids, I wrote it all down because I knew at some point they weren't going to tell me those same stories anymore. The stories were really consistent over the years that they told me, especially Zoe's. And now when I ask her about it, she goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's really sad. Eventually they, you know what I mean? They stop sharing and they forget. They drop into the same amnesia that you and I are struggling with. Yeah, Zoe told me that too. And she can remember my heartbeat. She can remember laying on it, is what she told me. Remember laying on your heartbeat. Okay. There are 5 levels of conscious awareness in the brain, right? Five levels of brain waves that get activated during different levels of awareness. And so I want to talk about those tonight too. And so it's pretty fluid, okay, between the brain wave states. It's pretty fluid from waking state to, where you are in deep, dreamless sleep state, which is a gamma wave. Your beta waves are your waking state waves, right? So that's alert, you're focused. And so that's where you are right now. Right now, I would say you're probably between beta. I might be able to take you to alpha. Alpha is the next level down. Okay, so beta waves are functioning when you're wide awake. Alpha is the next level down, and it's basically a very light state of meditation, but really it's just relaxation. So it's shutting off that conscious mind just a little bit, just to get it to shut up long enough where you can hear your own voice of your intuition. And so that's going from beta to alpha. Alpha state meditation, by the way, is just listening to relaxing, calming music. It's maybe closing your eyes. You can easily drop in. You can go from beta to alpha super fast if you cut off one of your senses. Part of the reason that we are such an anxious society, with people chewing their fingernails and on all kinds of medication and over medicating themselves with sugar and alcohol, one of the reasons we're in this anxious place. And I really have, if you want to know what my button is, because everybody has a compassion button. Like the one thing that makes them feel so deeply for other people that they get moved to tears. Everybody's got their button. My compassion button is anxiety, because I think anxiety is one of the most uncomfortable experiences for a human being. It is such an unnatural state for us to be in a state of anxiety. And because people feel safe coming to me when they're anxious, I have dozens of people who come to me all the time with really severe anxiety and are honest enough with me to tell me what that's really like. And so I don't live with that, but I know a lot about it. And so one of the things I think we need to teach each other, where this can be a helpful class for you to share with other people, is teach people how to get from beta to alpha. We don't know how to relax, and our brain needs it. Our brain needs not to spend all of its time in beta state. We don't constantly need to be alert and calculating and making decisions. Like beta state, waking state is exhausting if that's where you try to spend all your time. And so beta is awake, alpha is relaxed. By the way, the alpha is the level of mastery and learning. Did you know that you can't You can't learn anything in beta state. You're not gonna remember it. You can quickly access information, take this order, get this person this thing, put that glass down, take out the trash, be nice to your mom. we can get information in beta, but tomorrow, are you going to remember everything on that list? No, because you didn't learn anything. You were just taking in information, okay? So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. This is all like, I'm setting the foundation because you have to know all of this or everything else I'm going to tell you won't make sense. So if you want to learn something, if you want to master something, if you want to get beyond your own anxiety, if you want to get out of your mind, the very first step is to simply move yourself, and it's a breath away, but it's the most important breath. You have to consciously move yourself from beta to alpha. I'm going to teach you an exercise right after I'm done sharing this with you to show you what alpha feels like. Alpha is, at the very least, you get alpha when you do one of our guided meditations, think of our full moon meditations, or I would say it's much deeper than alpha for elder council, but at least a full moon meditation should get you to alpha. That's a relaxing state. That's a state where you can remember things. That's a state where wisdom can come through. That's a symbolic state of mind too. You are not able to work with symbols as well in beta state. It's alpha state where you start to be able to engage symbols. And symbols are very important for learning because symbols are how we create in our mind. It's really interesting to read your comments. Because Donna's saying as an ICU nurse, she gets quiet when there's an emergency. But that's one of the ways, I would assume, Donna, because you'd have to, right? That's one of the ways that you're compensating and moving into a higher order of brain function so that you are able to recall facts. If Donna was, as an ICU nurse, if Donna was trying to respond in a life and death situation from that beta waking state of consciousness, she would not be able to remember her training well enough and access all of that information to be able to deliver that effectively. So what she has to do as an ICU nurse, I imagine, is even though everything's all beta, people are screaming, yelling, clear, ambulance, noise, that's all beta, she's having to drop down to alpha, okay? And she's having to push in to say, okay, this person has come in. She probably, Donna, and I'm using you as an example, hopefully that's okay, but I'm guessing at a certain point, do you even stop hearing? Like some of the monitors and bells and things like that. Like I bet you, when you have to go into that zone, I bet you have to even tune out some of the noise because again, when all of your senses are going, it makes it really hard for you to access alpha. And so in meditation, what do I always say? Lay down, close your eyes, right? If you close your eyes, you're going to drop into alpha much more quickly. Okay. From alpha to theta, theta is deep meditation, and theta is what we call the state of metacognition. Okay. So when you go from waking beta, stress, panic, to relaxation alpha, it's a gentler state. You're more able to remember things. You're not in a fight or flight. You're present. You're able to respond, but you're able to respond from a more grounded place. Then when you drop even further down to the next level, okay, and so it's usually accompanied by a slowing of the heart rate. When we get to theta state is metacognition. Theta state is the first state, technically, where you are able to access psychic information. Channeling, they say, happens at delta. Delta sleep is dreamless sleep. It is what happens when you are in the deepest state of dream time, is when you are some of the only time that you may be in delta. And then gamma is the deepest possible state with what you might call a deep trance. It's not comatose, but it is deep trance. Isn't that interesting? So those are kind of and I'm teaching you that. I almost want you to think about like a stoplight. When you come to an intersection, there's the red light, the yellow light, the green light. I want you to think about it that way, right? It's like when it comes to psychic information, when you're in beta, that's a red light for you. You cannot expect yourself at 3 p.m. in the afternoon when you've got 10 kids over to your house and you're trying to make a snack and you just picked them up from school and your husband's calling or the boss is calling and the gardener's out. That's not a time when you're going to be a really effective psychic medium channel. talking to the dead, calling in massive healing for people. You're at beta. If you go into a quiet room, dim the lights and burn some incense, and then you drop into a guided meditation, maybe with a drum beat, or you're listening to the heartbeat, or you've got somebody like me. Yeah, so gamma, delta, gamma are more what you experience with work like Dolores Cannon does, and deep states of hypnosis. I'd be happy to make you a GIF of that. Let me make a note to myself, because I think that's a rad idea, actually. I'll make that for you tomorrow. I'm just gonna make myself a note. I'm at the age now where if I don't write that down, that will not happen. So, brainwave PDF. Okay, that's on my list. Okay, so I want to do an exercise with you. I want to get right to it. So I'm going to light my candle. This is my favorite intuition candle, by the way. I pulled up a couple of things from sagegoddess.com just to show you. Not to tempt you with anything, but usually people say, well, what are some good tools? This is the only intuition kit we have on the site, but it has Pythia in it, which I don't know if you remember Pythia. Pythia is rose, cypress, and ylang-ylang, pure essential oil blend. I actually made, it's fucking gorgeous. I made Pythia with sabbatical when I taught perfuming about 6 years ago. I made this live. I made Pythia live with sabbatical. So those of you who are in sabbatical, you may remember that. And it was like one of our big bonding experiences. So Pythia is really special. Cypress and rose were the two essential oils that were used by the Oracle. They were used in a vapor, but they were used by the Oracle at Delphi. So around the Oracle at Delphi, there was a ring of cypress trees. And in between each of the cypress trees was a rose bush. If you don't know what the Oracle at Delphi is, it's the original. Pythia was the Oracle at Delphi. That was her name, which is why I named the perfume that. But to the Greeks, cypress, in China and in Japan and in Asia, cypress is thought to be the tree of the dead. But in Greece, it was thought to be the tree of life and wisdom and knowledge. It was actually thought to be a derivation of the tree from the Garden of Eden. Okay, so the Oracle, they would cut the cypress branches, bring them in, burn them, and the smoke would rise. And so the Oracle would use the cypress smoke to channel her visions. The Oracle at Delphi was also using gases that were rising from the floor of the temple, and so she was also very high. We do know that historically, that she was inhaling a lot of fumes that probably were leading to some pretty intense visions too. Yeah, 5 or V would be a great. I have my bottles in my office, where I would grab it, but that would be a great one too, because this is interdimensional work. This is for sure interdimensional work. So these are the stones, by the way, that come with that kit. You get Hawkeye, Blue Tiger's Eye. You get Tumbled Azurite, which is so beautiful, and then Indigo Agate. Anyway, so if that speaks to you today, just make sure you use your code. Oh, and by the way, here's what's crazy. I don't want to talk about product right now, but did you know that we're doing the buy one, get one tumbled? So if you buy this set, you get 2 of your tumbled stones. I know, so it's 18% off with code 18moon, and then you get double the tumbled. I think we end up paying you. This is the intuition kit. I just pulled it up because I was like, you know, what's in stock right now that's good for intuition? And I love this set. This was our original intuition candle that I made 6 years ago. I designed that label and made that and wrote that invocation. So it's an oldie and a goodie, and the price is good, and you get all your free stones today. Okay. So I'm going to light my candle. I've anointed with my perfume. And I do like to use sound. So I'm going to play the bowl. I would say choose any stone that resonates with you for right now. So this is a 432 megahertz quartz crystal singing bowl that has a gold overlay. And just close your eyes. Bring your attention to your third eye, space between your eyebrows. And just feel as the sound gathers in that place, in that seat of your inner knowing. And it's just good protocol to always open a container before we do any sacred work. So if you want to work with a stone right now, you can. You don't need to for what we're about to do. We just need you. So if you want to grab a stone. And if you dropped in, stay there. Stay in that nice, soft, relaxed state. Put your hands on your knees. You always want to have your hands open when you're doing psychic work because you want to be receptive to energy. You don't want to sit like this with your hands down or cross your arms or fold your arms. You want energy to be able to flow through your body. So, and I'm notoriously bad about crossing my legs because I like to cross my legs, but you shouldn't. You should have your feet flat, your hands on your knees with your palms up, straighten your back, put your shoulders back, stick your boobs out, right? You want a nice clean line because energy flows up your spinal column. So you want to always try to move with as much straightness in your system as possible, especially when you're trying to channel and open psychic doorways because energy has to be able to flow well. You can't read like this. You have to open up. Woo. Okay. So I want you to bring your attention right here. Your third eye is connected to your pineal gland or pineal gland, depending on how you pronounce it. And it is this little tiny gland inside of your brain, shaped a little bit like a pine cone, which is why you see pine cones everywhere, right? You see pine cones on the Vatican in Rome. You see pine cones in ancient Mesopotamian and Sumerian artwork, right? It's always been a symbol of this little tiny place in the brain that is your seat of awareness. Have highly calcified pineal glands, meaning they no longer function. And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories. I don't want to scare you or like take you down a rabbit hole, but you can go do your own homework. The conspiracy theories is that starting in the 1940s, 1950s, with fluoridated toothpaste and the additives that are in our food, that it was a global conspiracy to calcify our pineal glands to prevent them from functioning so that we would go to sleep and be more easily controlled by governance systems. And so what a lot of us are doing is consciously decalcifying. That's part of why I use apple cider vinegar every day and have taken sugar out of my diet for the most part and artificial sweeteners and caffeine, because these are all things that calcify the pineal gland, and we have to get away from those things in order to heighten our psychic gifts. Okay, now that singing bowl is intense, so it's pretty normal. If you felt that or really heard that loudly, that's pretty normal, don't worry. So I want you to bring your attention right here, right between your eyebrows. Keep your eyes closed. And I want you to imagine that space between your eyebrows is a little screen, like a little projector screen. And if it helps, like project it out. I can do it just by imagining it happening right here, but behind the skin, right in front of my, right between my eyebrows and right behind the skin right here. That's your little projector screen. That is your window to your soul and everybody else's soul too. And so what you have to do is learn how to see information on this screen and pull it up. And so to practice that, the best way to practice is by what's called slicing the apple. When you slice the apple, you go from beta to alpha and potentially to theta. So it gives you a little bit of a taste of what it feels like to drop into a deeper state of awareness. So stay with me, keep your eyes closed. And so up on this little screen here, you can make it as big or as small as you want. This is your screen. I want you to imagine pulling up an image of a beautiful, ripe, red apple. Medium size, perfectly ripe. You know how a really juicy, ripe apple, like the skin is shiny and there's no imperfections or blemishes. It's like one of the most beautiful, evenly colored, bright red apples you've ever seen. And there's a perfect little stem. And I want you to imagine taking a very sharp knife, hold the apple in your left hand, sit the apple down, project it up on the screen. And I want you to imagine slicing, cutting that apple in half, right down the center through the core. And it's a beautiful thing to slice a perfectly ripe apple, because you slice through that flesh, and as you pull that apple apart, the flesh is like glistening, beautiful, white, ripe apple flesh. And as you slice through, it's a clean slice. And as you take those two halves apart, you can see the perfect 5 seeds almost form a star. And so on that screen, I want you to project the image now of both of those halves of your apple split open. I want you to see the beautiful, shiny, moist inner flesh of that apple. I want you to visualize the seeds. Even visualize the little pockets of the seeds where the seeds were sitting. Maybe one is empty. And I want you to really see the texture of the flesh as you've sliced it. And see if you can smell. Sometimes a fresh apple smell will come. It starts to help you understand what your soul gifts are. Are you more visual? Is it really easy to see that apple and all the texture? And then try, in your mind's eye, try turning the halves of the apple upside down. So now you see 2 halves of just the outer skin, the outer flesh. And notice the texture, the color. Is it an even red? Are there little spots where there's like little, maybe more golden, maybe more brown, or is it just perfectly red all the way around? Again, anchoring yourself in the fine details, in the stem, in the core. Turning it back over one more time, looking at the seeds, looking at the flesh. Now I want you to imagine putting the halves of that apple back together, line it up so that flesh is perfectly whole again. It almost looks like you didn't even cut it. And I want you to turn it around in your mind's eye and really see all sides. Maybe see the line where you cut. See the halves come back together, seeing the stem. Which half kept the stem? And as you come back together, which half is holding the stem? And then when you're ready, just gently bring yourself back to present time. That is a very, very, very helpful exercise to give you a taste. If you had no idea what alpha state of consciousness is, if that term doesn't mean anything to you, if you haven't meditated before, that should bring you pretty close. That's a 2 or 3 minute taste of what alpha feels like. That is the place from which you can learn, from which you can teach, from which you can have difficult conversations with people, from which you can love, mindfully love and be present. That is the place, right? But you have to think about what a discipline that takes. I mean, how often in your day do you give yourself time to really sit and go? Because you can do this with anything, right? So a client comes to you and they say, my heart is broken. So let me give you an example of how this works with a client. My heart is broken. And I feel like I'm never going to recover. I'm worried I'm never going to be able to love again. So many things have happened to me, and I just have a really hard time forgetting and forgiving. What do you recommend? So one of the first things I do, and it's both sweet and beautiful and sad at the same time, is I close my eyes. You can do this with your own heart, by the way, if you want to do it with me. Close your eyes. And no, it's not, I love that. Paralandra says, is it weird to be able to taste the apple? No, that means that's one of your soul gifts, right? And so embrace that, because taste is another way that we take information in. So I think that's really, really great. So what I do when I have a client who's coming to me and the problem is a broken heart, I bring their heart up on the screen. Try doing this with me right now. Do it for you. What I imagine is I close my eyes and I imagine gently opening their heart chakra, allowing me to see that beautiful beating biological, right, heart there. And I ask permission always, but they usually give it. When people want advice, they're usually open to letting you work with them. So you're doing your own right now. You don't need permission. Just pull up an image of your heart on your screen. You're perfect, anatomical, wounded, broken, awesome, strong, powerful, beautiful, damaged. You know, we're all the same. Your heart. Flip your heart on that screen. You can send love to your heart. So much gratitude for carrying you through this life and keeping you strong and keeping you healthy. And then what you can do is you can slowly turn your heart and look at it, you know, and ask your guides to show you where is that break? Where is that trauma? Where did it come from? Who was involved? You know, where, if we're going to go back and heal whatever that is for you from your past, what heartbreak really are you still sitting with? Are you still looking at? And over time, if you start to do this exercise more and more, you'll start to be able to just speak to it. It's like I'm seeing a big crack down the left side, and the left side for many people is the paternal side. And so, you know, where in your heart is there a longing for the divine masculine? You know, where have you not received the loving support from the masculine that you needed? And how can we support you to find that, to access that, to mend that place in you that is broken? Isn't it beautiful? It's interesting. So Kristen says, I feel the apprehension as I'm opening it. And this is one of the things. It's really, it's brilliant, honestly, Kristen, that you have the self-awareness to even to know like, what you're feeling right now. So stay with that, because I think that's half the battle. But it's scary to look. Do you know what I mean? Like people say, well, why don't people do it? It's scary to look at your stuff. It's a huge thing for someone else to let you look at their stuff. It's a huge honor when someone says, can you help me? Or would you look? Or what do you see? That's a huge honor. So here's what I would tell you. When you do these visualizations, trust what you see. Okay. When you're visualizing, you can pull your chakras up onto the screen and analyze each one. Is it bright or is it dull? Is it shiny and clear? Is it opaque? Is it perforated or rough, or is it smooth? Is it spinning pretty easily, or is it lagging? Is it jumping? You know what I mean? These are all ways to assess your chakras from a visual perspective. Now, this exercise, isn't it interesting? If you see a dark spot, because sometimes a dark spot or anything that's kind of opaque or cloudy can be a sign to you that that's a place of imbalance. And so you'd want to look and see, what is it? Now, Rhonda Carlson said, what if you don't see anything? One of the main things I have to tell you is not everybody sees, okay? Even with their third eye, right? This is not an exercise seeing with your seeing eyes, right? We're closing your eyes. But some people still don't have the gift yet of clairvoyance. Clairvoyance was not always my thing. A lot of people can do this exercise, but may not use it as a psychic tool. You may be, on the other hand, because there are a lot of clairs. Clair means clear, okay? So clairvoyance means clear sight. Clairaudience is clear hearing. Clairsentience is clear feeling. Clairalliance is clear smelling. Spirit speaks to me in scent, and it does with a lot of you too. My grandmother has come to me maybe half a dozen times since she died. About 25 years ago, she's come to me in scent, and my mom too. She comes to us at the same time, only when we're together, and she comes in scent. So I'm clairaudience. I can smell the spirits, and sometimes a room will fill up. I've had people have the same experience with me, so it's kind of nice when they validate it that way. But I've had a room fill up with a scent, and I can't explain it. Nobody sprayed it. Nobody burned it. It's like this whole room smells like pine right now. And then when it's clairaudience, one of the ways you know is it comes and then it's gone. My grandmother knows how to fill up a room with her perfume. And then 2 seconds later, it's gone. How do you explain that? And in a way that other people can smell too. Oh, Danielle, sweet Danielle. Well, it's a lot. And, you know, for some of you, you may have been feeling some of these things all along, but not have known what they are. So yeah, so let's talk about the clairs again. And I can make this is another thing, I can make you a quick PDF for me, you know what I mean? So that you don't have to, I don't want you running around trying to do research right now. I want you to be able to focus. So clairaudience is clear hearing, which means you hear messages from your spirit guides. Now, one of the number one questions I get, right, is how do I know it's not just me? In fact, I think a couple of you asked that on the questions in the groups over and over and over again. How do I know? Yeah, how do I know the difference between my imagination and spirit when I go into meditative places? I'm not sure if I'm making it up or if it's really happening. And the other question that came up multiple times in this list is, how else can an empath determine if they're feeling somebody else's emotions? So how do you know if it's you? How do you know if it's your spirit guides? And how do you know if it's that lady across the room who's been creeping you out? That's a good question. Okay, yeah, so you guys have all these different gifts. And so that's why I want you to know, like, you're going to learn from everybody else who's here too, because a lot of people have done this exploration and figured out what their soul gifts are. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The way I know that it's my spirit guides is because it's stuff that I would not have come up with on my own. It does not come up with on my own. And Nicole, if I probably won't address that right this minute, but I will come back to it because it's a great question. She's asking how to connect with spirit guides or someone else's spirit guides. Do they just stay after you're done? Like, and that's a protocol question. Like, how do you connect with someone else's guides and then make sure that you are also releasing them so you're not carrying that energy around? Okay. So clairaudience is clear hearing. The spirit guides use your voice. Okay. So this is why it gets confusing as shit, because, and I don't hear my own voice, okay, but they use your thought waves. They have to. What else are they going to use? Okay, so they have to use your own inner thought waves, your own brain waves, your own sleep patterns. They have to use your mind and to some extent your voice to communicate with you. The way you will start to, know, and claircognizance too, Athena, thank you for that. The way you'll start to know is there's no way you would have come up with the information. And if you can start collecting those bits where you go, that's definitely not me, then you'll start to recognize that information tends to come in certain patterns and at certain times, okay? My spirit guides really like to get me at night, right before I fall asleep. It's like Chattertown, because I'm tired and I'm not trying to control the conversation. They also really like I meditate every day in the morning. I never miss it. Half the time I'm usually pulling in messages for our community or other people, but I never miss it. And so for me, my spirit guides, I will say this, when they share stuff with me, it's usually more profound than my own thoughts, more complex and higher order, meaning I can stop and say, I wouldn't have come up with that. They gave me something in meditation yesterday that was so completely complex and beautiful. And I would never have taken credit for it because it was so smart and it was so circuitous. It was like, it's a moment of awe when I just stop and go, wow, they're good. You know what I mean? Like, because your spirit guides, as you start to pay attention, they pull things. They pull this over here with this over here, and then this person from over here, and then this experience from 5 years ago over there, and then this thing that's happening to you here, and they wrap it up in a bow, and then they give it to you. Sometimes, just to show you, like, see, it's all connected. That person that you met, that class you took, that thing you were writing, that, like that question somebody asked you, see how we just took it all and just wrapped it up for you. So part of it is you have to start paying attention, writing down. Every time I meditate, I go and I get my notebook and I download it in writing every single time. And I go back a few days later and I sift. And I can tell you, I could make a list and highlight for you what is directly from spirit, because I can see how they think. And it's not how I think. It's, I without being too self-deprecating, I'm not that good. I'm good. I'm not that good. And at least on a weekly basis, okay? At least on a weekly basis, I have moments where I literally look up and just go, I don't even know. Just thank you. Because they're so good and they're so smart. And then they get excited, okay? Because, and I see this in my own life and I see it in your life too. When you start to pay attention, you start making these lists. So if I was going to give you homework, and you know I used to be a teacher, it's 432, by the way, which is a very powerful synchronicity. I played 432 megahertz for you at the beginning of the hour, so it's pretty cool. They're communicating with us. If I could give you homework, I would have you meditate for at least 15 minutes a day. Sounds like a lot maybe, but it's the minimum you would need to really be able to start to put all of this together. I would have you meditate for 15 minutes a day. By meditation, I mean sit down somewhere, close your eyes, turn on some very light music, and just be with what is. If a thought comes in your mind, acknowledge it and let it fly away. Another thought comes, acknowledge it, let it fly away. Another thought comes, acknowledge it, let it fly away for 15 minutes. Set a timer if you have to. I like to just listen to a heartbeat when I'm meditating, like just quietly in the background, because it brings you, if you get distracted, like your kid yells or, the lawnmower starts or whatever, if you have a heartbeat playing, it will give you what we call a return. It'll give you something to come back to and anchor into so that you don't lose your state of meditation. If you have headphones, that helps. But so Lita says, how do you not fall asleep? If I did it for much longer than I do it, I probably would. But I meditate in the morning after I've had, some kombucha, a little yerba mate, or a little tiny bit of coffee. Like I'm not tired. I don't do heavy meditation right before I fall asleep. I listen for my spirit guides, but that's not a heavy meditation time. Heavy meditation time for me is in the morning. How do you, so here's the thing, Christina, and again, it's a great question. Like, this is exactly why I wanted to do this session with you guys, because I want to get into these questions. So she said, how do you control your mind keeps going? This is a lifelong process. I haven't mastered it. There are some days where I'm like, that was a great fucking meditation. You know what I mean? Like, nobody interrupted me. I didn't have monkey mind. I feel like the messages were pretty clear. And then there are days where I'm like, I am so busy and stressed and that I meditated, but I don't know if I got as much out of it, right? So it's a work in progress. But what I will tell you is, it is a practice, that's right. And it's a discipline. I mean, it is some days I don't want to do it. It's like, there's a funny meme on Facebook, right? Like, isn't it like the guy is like sitting meditating, he's looking up and he's like, can you please just give me my download? I don't have all day. So it's really true, right? But here's the number one thing to tell yourself as you're going into that state of meditation. The key to happiness is setting all your bags down. The key to psychic development is setting all your bags down. Think about it this way. If you choose to carry all your problems around with you from now until tomorrow, or you don't, this is a real important thing for us to talk about. If you choose to carry all your problems with you from now until tomorrow, or you choose not to carry all your problems around with you, you choose to set them down and give it a break and stop thinking about them for a few minutes, your day is going to turn out the same. You're not going to get more done today because you carried your 45 pounds of problems around. You're not going to win an award for that. And so what I've started to do at the beginning of my day is going to be the same, whether I carry this anxiety around or set it down, whether I carry this sadness around or set it down, whether I carry this worry around or set it down. So I'm going to set it down because, and this goes back to the beginning, right? You cannot raise your vibration and get into that flow of energy to become a better, more effective channel of psychic information if you are in fight or flight. If the only thing you're worried about is, did you get the groceries to cook the dinner, did they flush the toilet, did I pick up the dry cleaning? If you're in that place, that's not a psychic place. That is a reactive place, which can be very helpful for getting through a human lifetime. But if you come home at night and you carry all your work problems home with you and you're in your suitcase, and then you take them into your bed, you open up your sheets and you put all your problems in your bed, how do your guides have any space to communicate with you? And then you come to me and say, or to someone else and say, how come I can't hear my guides? Your guides are probably screaming at you. But so is everybody else. They're gonna have to scream louder, or you're gonna have to go to alpha state. And I'll tell you something. And I do have the luxury of having created a life where I can almost live in alpha state. But I still have a partner, I still have children, I still have aging parents, I still have family I take care of, I still have employees, I still have, payroll, I still have writing that I have to get done, I have deadlines for projects, right? So I'm not able to just unplug and zen out and just live on a beach in Costa Rica somewhere. But I do spend, I would say I probably actively spend about 70% of my day in alpha. Meaning, if I find that I'm too much in beta and I'm too stressed and I'm too anxious, I consciously move into a deeper state of awareness. And the way I do that, for me, because I'm a visual person, is I imagine taking everything. I ask myself, what's the problem right now? Write it down if it helps. Write them all down, or just say it out loud. Here are the 5 things that are keeping me in beta right now. And then sit the bags down. Sit one bag down, sit the second bag down, sit the third bag down, sit the fourth bag down. Because the reality is your day is going to go the same either way. But the rest of your life is going to unfold in a more healthy, productive, and sane way if you try to live more of your life in alpha state. I'm not suggesting that you should live your life in theta state. That's if you end up building an ashram and inviting me, and then we all get in bed together and meditate when we're older ladies. That is more how we would live in theta state. We're not we're not there yet. Okay, that's an interesting question too. So Nathan says, I was wondering about where you think we go during breath work. It's not just like any meditation I've ever done. I seriously feel like I'm flying. Okay, so let's talk about that. I will tell you that for me, and this is just my own personal opinion and lived experience, deeper shamanic work, meaning drum journeys, breath work, holotropic breath work, which almost everywhere in the United States now, if you go on Meetup, you can find a place to go do holotropic breath work, pranayama breath work, which comes out of the yogic tradition, but it's a over oxygenation, a hyper oxygenation of the brain. We're actually going to do a breath work. We're planning it anyway, a breath work workshop while the sabbatical sisters are here for the retreat in October. And Elaine Algani, my shaman friend, is coming to do a live drum journey during the retreat. So if you're coming to the sabbatical retreat, you're going to get to experience some of these very much, those are theta experiences for sure. I mean, we are out of beta, out of alpha, we are into gamma and even delta state consciousness when we do pranayama and drum journey. And then even deeper, when you do sacramental journeys using San Pedro or using ayahuasca or psilocybin, that's when you get into the deeper trance states as well. It almost doesn't matter how you do it. Some of the, it's hard to even say what the deepest experience has been because I've done them all, but I will tell you that the breath work is intense. And so that is activating a state of consciousness. It's not so much a place that you go. And so I don't want to get too complicated here, but there is a term, if you're interested in this, called entheogenic shamanism. Theo in Greek means God, right? Thea means goddess, Theo means God, right? The root of the word or name Theodore, right? It means God. And so an N means inside. And so entheogenic, Genesis means the creating or the opening or the making way for. Really helps to know your ancient languages when you try to study English, because there's so much of our language is rooted in Greek and Latin. But entheogenic is so it means the rise of the God within. If you look at the literal Greek translation of entheogenic shamanism, there are TED Talks on entheogenic shamanism now. There's a whole field of emergent shamanism that's rising up, not just in Central and South America, but in other parts of the world too. And so it's this idea, whether you use pranayama or you use a drum and to access lower realm in shamanic journey work, or whether you use some of the sacramental substances to access that that deeper state of conscious awareness. It doesn't kind of matter how you do it. They're all entheogenic in the sense that they all activate the God within. So there is a place in you there's a place in you where you can meet that level of God consciousness. And so it's not so much a place that you go, at least in my experience. This is probably the most accurate way I can describe it to you. It's not so much a place that you go, it is the removal of the wall. I really wish there was a way. I know, right? I really wish there was a way for everybody on this planet to experience it. I really do. I've got a friend, it's not a super close friend, but someone I know who's close to a friend of mine. And this man needs to have an entheogenic experience so badly. It would transform his marriage. It would transform my friend's life because she would have a healed partner. It would transform his kids' lives. I can't create that experience for him, but here's an example of a person where I think every part of his life, if he could see the God within, if there was a way to create an environment where he would be open enough to having an experience where he could encounter that, all of his anger and his rage and his resentment and his frustration, and because he is living in shadow, right? And shadow always turns destructive at a certain point. So he's at that place, that tipping point place where he's either going to heal that, move into healed space, or he's going to self-destruct. And it's, I wish I could create that, but I also wish I could explain to him. And so, but let me explain it to you. Are you ready? Because this should give you a little bit of peace. If anything I tell you tonight gives you peace, this will probably be it. If you haven't had any of those experiences, I can tell you as someone who's had all of those experiences multiple times, including a near-death experience, which was probably the most profound experience I had beyond ayahuasca. But ayahuasca's close. Ayahuasca is as close to experiencing what it is to die in my own human understanding as anything that I have experienced before. I want you to imagine that there is literally a wall right next to you. And on the other side of that wall, so here's the wall, and on the other side of that wall is complete love, complete understanding, complete healing, complete joy, complete perception, complete acknowledgement, complete surrender, everything whole and healed. Anything in your life that's broken, fixed. So you're over here and you've got health problems and weight problems and emotional problems and, mental challenges and relationship problems and, problems with your kids and problems with your kids' kids and all. And then there's a wall, and then literally right here, it's literally right here. And so when you have these entheogenic experiences, right, what you start to realize that, and you stop being so frustrated about being on this side of the wall, and you spend all your time figuring out, how do I break this down? Now I know everything I want and need and desire is over here. And I'll tell you, in our lifetimes, they're already talking about genetic editing and, line editing in the genetic profile and stuff. They're going to be able to fix everything that cures us. Maybe not in my lifetime, but certainly in my kids' lifetimes, unless we, destroy our planet, which I can't control that. But the guides are trying to stop us in every way they can. So hopefully they'll succeed. But I want you to think about, close your eyes for a second. The only way right now, consciously in third dimension, and this is a strong statement to make, but you guys are holistic healers and I'm going to make it. You ready? The only way I know of right now, using anything other than your mind to perforate this wall, is crystals. I know that I am perforating this wall with crystals. And I can tell you right now that this flicker of vision that I'm seeing of places all over the world, I'm starting to track where they're showing me. Because this is happening to me during the day right now. It just happened to me about an hour and a half ago. I will turn around, and instead of this whole wall, I can see another city with people and everything. And then as soon as I start to focus on details, it all closes off. Now, I don't know if that means I'm ascending, or I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means, but it's happening to me every day. I am using crystals to perforate my wall. And I think it's working. So that is one thing you can do. What are the crystals that you need to perforate your wall? You ready? This is what I'm using. I'm not saying this is all, but these are the ones that I have been using to perforate. I don't have them all to show you either, but you've seen my Synergy 12 grid enough so that you kind of know what that is. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. That makes me really, really happy. I do want to try and get to more of your questions, so I'm going to jump onto the question sheet in a minute, and then we can always, like I said, I mean, we can do part 2, part 3. I'm going to wait for your feedback to say I liked it, I want more, or I don't know if it was interesting. Maybe that's enough. There are stones that you can use to perforate the wall, and there are stones that you can use to raise this fountain of energy. And I also want to raise the fountain of energy with you for a couple of minutes before we sign off for tonight, because I want you to experiment with it. And I think this is a good thing to do right ahead of this eclipse window too. Like let's raise some energy for clarity tonight and direct knowledge and understanding so that we bring clarity and a steadiness to this eclipse cycle so that we can see, because it's really going to invoke all of your abilities to be able to see clearly in an eclipse environment. It's almost like trying to read reverse tarot cards in a forward way. It's like, good luck with that, right? I'm glad you're into it. Okay, all right, cool. Okay, so here are the 5 stones that, in my experience, raise the energy and perforate the shield wall. Okay, that's so good. I'm glad. I'll keep going as long as you guys like it. Okay, the number 1 stone for raising and protecting your own energy, meaning it's going to strengthen the amount of energy that you have, and it's going to supply you with, I think of it as like an energy battery pack. Okay, is Natrolite. Natrolite's a really interesting stone. I first encountered Natrolite about, I'm going to say 8 or 9 years ago, as one of these stones to help with multiple sclerosis, and it is. Natrolite is thought to be one of the most powerful healers of the human central nervous system. Multiple sclerosis and a number of other diseases too are the result of an overloaded system. It's a blowing of the central nervous circuit. Okay, people who develop multiple sclerosis, and this is according to Chinese medicine. This isn't just like me making this up. This is rooted in Eastern healing traditions. Is people who have MS at some point were exposed to fear, and that fear or anxiety overloaded their central nervous system. It blitzed it beyond what they could tolerate, and so. And I think that happened to me, and it can be an accumulation of trauma over time, but at some point it's a trigger. Okay, and so people will say, well, how do people get MS? Every disease has an energetic trigger, and so the gun just has to be pointed in the right direction. And so somebody who has trauma in their family line, which I do, like everybody in my family on both sides came out of war, right? That's enough trauma in a family line for me to bring that into this lifetime. And then if any trauma happens to me, it pulls the trigger and my circuits overload. And so one of the things, we had Natrolite. I brought a lot back from Tucson this year, but I think it's sold out. Team SG will let you know. I don't think we have any more. But if you find it, it's really good for the gathering of energy. And what it does, imagine it's like a balm for your central nervous system. It puts like a protective barrier over it so that any trauma, anybody else's energy, bad intentions set your way, anything like that, it buffers your entire central nervous system. It's really good for fibro. Sugilite is the same way. Okay, so Sugilite is another one that puts this sort of buffer or shield around the CNS, the central nervous system, to prevent energetic overload. So if you have MS, fibro, I think fibro is probably another really good example of a place to use this. Parkinson's disease would be another one that I would consider in the same category. And so this would be a really good chance for you to try working with those stones that are really protective. So they raise energy, but they help to support and stabilize your energy too. Carnelian. You have to be able to work with carnelian. Carnelian is a really important source of energy. It is the fountain stone. Here's my piece right here. This is actually from next month's new moon set, but I've got it on my altar to show you. So if you got the Leo new moon set for August, you already have this coming to you. And this is what you need. You need a nice big piece of carnelian. You can lay it on your body, right? You can lay it. It's a solar plexus and sacral chakra stone. So it's really good for the lower chakras, but you can hold it to any chakra. It energizes any chakra you hold it to. This is your fountain stone. So we're going to do a fountain meditation in just a second using this. Phenakite. I cannot underscore to you enough. If you want to develop your psychic gifts, phenakite is super important. I would go out on a limb and tell you that I think phenakite is one of the most powerful minerals that we have been gifted on this planet. You don't find it in very many places. Phenakos, by the way, I just finished my book, so all this is like top of my mind. I wrote a whole section on phenakite. Phenakos in Greek is deceiver, and the reason that the Greeks called phenakite phenakos is that it grows in so many different colors with different inclusions that it looks like 100 different stones. So it deceives the miners. It also looks just like quartz too. So Alexis Harris spelled it perfectly. You'll also see it, by the way. Thank you for that, Alexis. You'll also see it with a K. Nathan is running for carnelian, which is good. So phenakite raises your energy. It raises your state of conscious awareness. Phenakite accelerates you from 3D to 5D. What I was going to tell you earlier is when you finally ascend dimensions, when you finally break out of 3D and find yourself moving out of space and time, which a lot of us are. A lot of you are writing into me or sharing in classes, gosh, I have a hard time being on time. I have a hard time with clocks stop working around me, or I lose track of what day it is, you know what I mean? Or you're starting to lose your grasp on space and time, which can make you feel absolutely nuts. Okay, when you start to ascend, it makes you feel crazy, okay? But what you have to know is you're gonna have to go through that process in order to evolve. I mean, ultimately you're here to go through this evolutionary process. When you start to break free of the space-time constraints, you're not gonna be asking me about psychic development, because you don't have to try to build those gifts when you're outside of 3D. We have to try to be psychic right now because we're trying to create synchronicity in an unsynchronized space. Does that make sense? Like we're trying to tap into an energy field that is not immediately accessible to us. So we're having to create all these contrived practices in order to do something that is so fucking natural, but it's not natural to us because we're locked in the time-space continuum. I hope that makes sense. So 4D and 5D are where you lose track of time and space, okay? And so that's, each one of those holds the time and the space. So when you get to 5D, you're outside of time space. And then you can move into the 6th dimension, up to some people say the angels don't exist or any earlier than the 6th dimension or any lower than the 6th dimension. That the star beings are only at the 8th and 9th dimension. I struggle a little bit sometimes with those. I understand that once you get out of 3-4D, you're outside of space and time, and so you're not locked in those sort of human modalities. But the idea that we can define that the angels are at the 8th, dimension, and that we can't access the star beings until the 9th dimension, I can't prove that, and I don't have a lot of evidence of that. So I don't like to share things with you unless I know for sure. Okay, the last crystal I want to tell you about. It might surprise you that quartz is not on this list. I will tell you, quartz to me is like kind of a given. Okay, so you should work with quartz, but I wanted to give you stones other than quartz. Azurite. And we have a few pieces. This is what's on the website right now. This is all we have for azurite, by the way. These are crystals, which is kind of cool. We had tumbled before. These are considered nicer quality because they're the actual crystals inside. Look at that blue-green color. Aren't they beautiful? So Edgar Cayce believed that this stone penetrated the wall. That wall I was just talking about, he believed in that wall too. And he thought that this stone didn't just make little perforations, that this stone actually knocked that wall down. So Edgar Cayce said you can't have psychic visions really without azurite. I don't know if I would go that far, but I do think it's a really important third eye stone. So if you wanted to know a stone to do that, that's why we so this is tumbled. This is what's in that intuition set that I was showing you earlier. So this is natural azurite, just so you see what it looks like, and this is tumbled. Isn't it pretty? I've got the right nail polish on for that too, to show, to show that to you. So that's a really good one. If you've got azurite, malachite, you're all set. And then the last thing I would say, if you wanted to add one more to the mix, is topaz. Topaz. Our ancestors thought topaz was the most powerful crystal of them all. They did. In ancient Greece and Rome, they thought that topaz made you invisible, which is really interesting. You can get topaz pretty affordably too. We've got good topaz. You can find topaz a lot of different places. Here's what's interesting. The story behind that story, our ancestors thought it made them invisible in battle. And that's because it turns you to spirit. It turns you to spirit. Topaz is one of the most powerful ascension stones that we have. And our ancestors knew it too. And so when you go back, because I have now traced the history of crystals all the way back through every major civilization throughout history in writing this book. I'm really proud of it. And topaz is the one crystal the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Indians, every single ancient civilizations, the Mesopotamians, all really believed that it was a spirit stone. And so I think that there's a lot of validation to that. And I love working with topaz. It doesn't matter. That's the other really cool thing. So if you've got any topaz, and in my experience, they're all kind of the same. Now, some people say blue topaz isn't as great as the other topazes because it's been heated, which to certain people, alters the effectiveness of the stone. Not to me, because I love aura treated quartz, and that is quartz that has been heated to, really crazy extreme temperatures where most of the material just shatters. So I don't mind a little bit of a radiated treatment in my stone. So pink topaz is gorgeous, Melanie Moore, love it. You've got that, beautiful white topaz. I love that too. Blue topaz is, I think, just sweet and beautiful. So hopefully, my goal tonight is if you have any of these stones, bust those things out. Like if you don't have stuff and you want to get it, great. But if you have any of these stones, I want you to go back tonight and fall in love with them a little bit again. Maybe get them out, maybe incorporate them into the ritual that we're going to do at 6 p.m. tonight, right? Tonight's all about, watery energy of intuition. And so we're going to be working with all of these energies tonight too. Let me see what else I wanted to tell you really quickly. Let me go to your questions too. I'm going to take about 5 more minutes. Does anybody else have any questions that are like top of mind for you? No, seriously, Karen Carley's going back through her jewelry. I'm telling you guys, and this is part of my mission. See, a lot of you guys have a lot of stuff. And I know it's fun to just go accumulate more stuff. But what's also really fun and brings out the little girl in me and might bring out the little girl, little boy in you is going back and actually like playing with your crystals again. Get that piece of carnelian out that you've had for 30 years, right? And let it start being a little fountain of energy and light and beauty for you. I think it will enjoy working with you again. Moldavite is good and of course it's a member of the Synergy 12, right? So we love our Moldavite. For psychic development, it's not top of my list. For astral projection, it's pretty great. Like to get you out of your body. One of the techniques I want to teach you next time, I'm going to go through my notes and kind of cross out everything I did tonight, and then I will, I'll pick up where we left off during our next session. I want to teach you about the platonic solids next time. Because they're really, really important. And I want to teach you about, I think you know this, but each one of the platonic solids, these are the epidote ones, but it doesn't matter what stone it is. I just want to show you the shape. Aligned to an element. So this is fire element with the tetrahedron. The cube is the earth element. The octahedron is air element. This is what we activate diamond code with, if you remember that. And then you have the isosahedron, which is the water element. And then you have the dodecahedron. This is a dodecahedron, 12 sides, dodeca or dodeca. Dodeca is in Greek. Dodeca is 12. And so the dodeca or dodecahedron is actually the shape of the entire universe. And it's got 12 sides. Obviously, dodeca means 12. One of the things I want to teach you next time, if you're down for it, but let me know, because it would take some planning. And if you don't love it, I won't do it. Is I want to teach you how to, might sound crazy, but this is what I do. I want to teach you how to project these shapes. So we're going to imagine it in our mind's eye. We're going to blow it up and project it out. And then you can step into each of these shapes and activate the energy. So let's say you want to do a reading to help heal someone's heart. What element would that be? It's fun, right? Like, I feel like I'm your little psychic teacher for today. But I'm asking you a question. This is a test. If you wanted to do a ritual to heal someone, or a meditation or a psychic session to heal someone's heart, what element would that be? Heart would be emotions, would be, what element would you want to use to heal someone's heart? Or to do a psychic reading for them to understand what's going on in the heart space. You would use the water element, right? Okay, so that means you would use the icosahedron. So what we would do is, and you can always tell, because each one of the sides, each one of the faces has your 5 sides. See that? It's a little pentagram, so that's how you can tell you're working with it. And so what you can do is put the shape in your mind, project it out of your body, step inside of it, and then what we do is we spin the shapes. It's fascinating stuff, you guys. The Merkaba is actually just that. It's one-dimensional, two-dimensional, made multi-dimensional, so that you can get inside and let the energy spin around you. And so if you're doing more of an emotional reading, you'd want to activate the water element. If you've got a client coming to you and they're trying to get inspired, their creativity, they've lost their sexuality, they're trying to connect to their partner, then you would want to do a fire reading. So you would want to work with your tetrahedron. You would want to pull up the image of the thank you for that. You're basically pulling up a hologram. That's exactly right. And you're stepping into it. And when we make it spin, all of the sacred geometry naturally is in motion. So you're just working with the natural energy of those forms anyway. So that would be a really fun way to teach you how to prepare for a psychic reading using the elements and activating those energy streams, because that way you're not drawing solely on your own energy. That's another thing I need to teach you. So I'm going to go over protocol right now. I'm going to talk to you briefly about how to open up that fountain, just to give you some quick tips and exercises. And then I will have my team schedule session 2 for you guys. I'm so glad that you're loving it, right? Okay. So Melanie, it's the same thing. Whatever you do for you, you do for your clients. Whatever you do for clients, you do for you. So if I'm trying to summon more fire energy in my life, I will activate a tetrahedron and step inside and activate all that energy. If my sex drive is low, if I feel like I've got writer's block, right, that's all tetrahedral activity. So you got to activate that shape, step in, let it begin to move, and then you draw on that energy stream and pull it into your own field. Or you can do it for a client. And sometimes you need more air energy, right? I love doing an octahedral meditation, because when you step into that, it feels like air conditioning. It's like a whirring of this like life force and flow of energy, and makes everything move again. So when you feel stuck or sad or depressed or foggy in your mind, you don't have any clarity in your mind, you activate the octahedron for air and then call that energy in. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad that you guys are excited. Thank you for the sweet feedback. I'm really happy, because I honestly, you have to know, I have no ego about this. If you were like, wow, this has been a really weird class and I didn't like it, I would be like, okay, well, I just won't do it again. You guys are good sports, so I really appreciate it. And by the way, you can always tell me too, like, oh, I liked this part, but I didn't like this other part, or I'm always down to change things or do something different. Okay. So I want to talk about protocol with you. Ready? That's so good. Okay. I want you to, there's 2 different exercises. I'll teach you one next time, and I'll teach you one tonight. I want you to imagine, because it's a quick, easy one to do. I want you to imagine that you can see a beautiful fountain ahead of you. There's a fountain where I grew up as a kid, and it's the fountain I use. So if there's a fountain or a well or a water source that's just very familiar to you, a fountain is best. And I want you to imagine going and standing in front of that beautiful fountain. And I want you to imagine that fountain, instead of pouring water, is pouring absolute pure life force. You can still imagine it as water if you want, but it's water that is designed to heal your body. It's designed to heal your energetic space. It's designed to heal your emotions. That water is full of every vitamin that your body is lacking right now. It's full of every nutrient that your system needs. It's full of everything necessary to heal every cell in your body of any disease. That water will bring you rest. It will bring you peace. It will bring you courage. It will bring you prosperity. It will bring you optimism. And you can do a waterfall. Love it, Megan. Like whatever. I know, Athena, I think about that too, Atlantis and Lemuria. Okay, so imagine that wherever it is, if it's a waterfall or a fountain, whatever it is, and I want you to imagine walking toward it, and I want you to step into that fountain. I don't care what you got to do. Mine, I'd have to hike up a couple stairs, but I want you to imagine stepping into it. Pull up your dress or your pants, take your shoes off, get in there, and I want you to imagine just standing in the flow of that water. And I want you to feel it coming, not just from above your head and down over you, but I want you to imagine it coming up from under you, through the soles of your feet, up through your bones, up through your muscles and your tendons, through your veins and your arteries. I want you to feel that water completely flowing down over you and up from under and through you. And I want you to relax there. I want you to imagine that everything you need is in that flow. You don't have to provide anything. You are being completely supported as you stand here. And I want you to imagine energetically taking everything you need from this water. This water is here for you. So I want you to take your health, take the health that you need right now, take the comfort, take the relief for your muscles, for your physical, your body systems, take the hormones that you need right now. Let's do really deep hormone replacement for ourselves. Let's call in everything we need to purify our blood, to improve circulation through our veins. I'm feeling like somebody's got swelling they're trying to work with. So let's just call in complete movement of all body fluids easily through the body. And now let's call in energy streams. Let's call in energy streams of optimism and joy. Let's call in all the energy that we need right now to be able to hold space for others and for our planet. And if there's anything, I can feel all that you're moving through, by the way. It's so flippin' beautiful. If there's anything that you need to release or let go of, I want you to imagine just letting that pour out of you like water too, and let it just be replaced. So pour out your anxiety, your sadness, your fear of losing control, pour out your frustration and your resentment, pour all that out, and then just let the water replace, let it pour through you and replace all of those emotions that you're releasing. And now I want you to call in additional stores of everything that you need. Call in extra health, extra support, extra encouragement, extra joy. I want you to have backup for your backup. Replenishing, replacing, calling in healing for every cell in your body, calling in repairing any body systems that are damaged, repairing, sending love and healing to your brain, to your central nervous system. And when you feel like you've had enough, you're full, then you can go ahead and take a step back and out of the fountain. And I always like to kind of imagine drying myself off, toweling off a little bit, feeling better. Sometimes you get, if you're really a visual person like I am, I'll imagine like letting the sun kind of come on me and warm me now as I step out of the fountain and feeling myself sort of dry off. And like as I'm drying off, just patching and repairing and putting everything back together, giving thanks for the healing and the purification. Okay. Doing this exercise is really important. It's important for you physically because it can be very healing to do that visualization and that exercise. But what it does is it plugs up any holes in your auric field, because if you do a reading and you have holes in the field, you are vulnerable. You are astrally and energetically vulnerable. And that's when you get into trouble. And that's why I was saying earlier, oh, I love that, Marilyn. Really, really beautiful. The only time people come to me and they're in trouble, meaning that they opened some energy that is dark. This is really important for me to say, so I'm going to say this. I'm going to share a little bit about protocol and we'll be done for tonight. There are only a few times in your life when you really shouldn't do a lot of magical work. And again, this is a really bold statement to make, but I think it's really accurate based on decades of doing this work and hundreds and thousands of client testimonials. couple of times, what I'll say is you can do magical work anytime, but you're vulnerable at certain times in your life, okay? Pregnancy, birth of a child, divorce. Those are very difficult times to work magic. When you are pregnant, all of your energy and your life force is going toward the development and protection and spiritual development of your unborn child. That is not a 9 months usually spent cultivating one's own psychic gifts in one's own field. You are now becoming a guardian and a caretaker for someone who has no energetic resources of their own yet. And so divorce, marital problems. If you are going through intense stress in a relationship, marital or otherwise, I don't care if you're married, intense strain in a relationship of any kind, that is a very dangerous time to do psychic work. Grief, right after the loss of someone, it can be a very dangerous time. When someone close to you dies, your entire energetic field is thrown off. And so what I would say is when those events happen, and I've got chills, so obviously this is really important for me to tell you, only you will know when you're ready. But what I always tell people is that is not the time to be doing anything crazy. New parents are physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted and drained. And so when they try to raise energy or cast a spell or do anything that requires opening a sacred container, they often don't have the energetic reserves to protect themselves while they're doing it. And so I just want to, again, not to tell you not to do things at a certain time, but I just want to warn you that that's a time when you're probably very vulnerable. So let me say two things about, we're going to stop at 5:15. So let me just say two things about protocol. Lisa Marie, she's asking, including death of close pets. I don't know about you, but the loss of my pets in my life is some of the worst grief I've ever experienced. And I've lost people too. And maybe it's because I'm a Leo and my animals are always my familiars, but I have almost lost it every time I have lost one of my pets. And so anyway, for me, that's right the hell up there with any other bad things that happen, for sure. Okay, so if you're going through that kind of trauma, you know what I mean? Like, give yourself the space and don't rush into magical work until you know that you're through it and you're psychically more prepared to be safe. Okay, protocol. The first thing is you always have to smudge and clear your space. Always have to. There should never be a time when you do any kind of magical work, and certainly psychic work is the most magical of all work because you are opening a door and channeling an energy. Never do that without smudging. Yeah, I think puberty is a very sensitive time. Menopause tends to be another time when women are vulnerable. Anytime you are not sleeping through the night, you are astrally vulnerable. And so again, not doing a lot of projection work, psychic work of that kind. You must always smudge. You must always open a circle. Right? So clockwise, you can do it with selenite, you can do it with a quartz wand, right? Any of your magical tools will work. And then, and I'm actually going to close ours up now because we did a little bit of work, but I still opened a circle, so I will close a circle. You always want to honor the 4 directions and elements, even if it's just with items on your altar that represent those items or those directions. That's just good protocol because it anchors your ritual space. When you call to the north, the south, the east, and the west, I want you to imagine putting like 4 pins across the world, right? You're basically pinning down or anchoring down your magical work so that it has a container within which the energy gets raised and moves and flows. And then when you release the directions, you sort of release everything that you've pinned down so that energy is able to flow and spread and move into the world wherever it needs to go. Energy is never created, it's never destroyed, but it gets raised, directed, channeled, and then it gets grounded. So that's kind of a little bit of that. So you have to open a circle, smudge, hold the 4 directions, make sure you undo all of that. So close the circle, release the directions at the end of your work, and make sure that you have enough energetic reserve so that you're not going to be vulnerable. That's the only time you're in danger when you do psychic work, is if you have not done these things. So hopefully that's helpful. So Terry's asking a great question, right? What order do you do these things? So I always smudge before I do anything else. And I will tell you, whenever you see me smudge, I've already smudged. So I leave nothing to chance. When I smudge with you during class or during ritual, I'm kind of doing it as protocol, but the whole room has already been smudged. I have already been smudged. My hands, my feet have been smudged. All of my tools have been smudged. So you can't over smudge. I like to open a circle as soon as possible because you don't want ritual work to happen in a container that hasn't been appropriately held. So I like to do that as soon as possible. And I usually will call the directions once I have opened the circle and release them before I release the circle. Does that help? Yeah. And you can start in the east. I think that's a beautiful place to begin. I usually start by calling the east and finish in the north. And then when I release the directions, I usually release north first and then wind my way back counterclockwise back to east. And always remember too, just good protocol again, because and I'm not senile. Okay, I'm getting old, but I'm not senile yet. I won't be shy about it if I get to that place. But I never forget. I don't always know who I'm telling things to 10 times. So you may have heard me say this once, or you may have heard me say this 10 times, and I apologize if it's 10 times. Never throw your ash away. So you smudge, smudge, smudge. It looks like that. Oops, I spilled some on my keyboard. It looks like that. That goes outside. That is food for your plants. That's how we fertilize all of our white sage plants here at Sage Goddesses with all that ash. There's so many nutrients in that ash. Your flowers, your roses will bloom like you have never seen them bloom if you plant them in the eastern part of your garden and fertilize them with ash. And it'll have all of the beautiful energy, right, from every ceremony that you've done. So yeah, bag it up. No ash in the trash. It's not good protocol. That's right. Well, and so last thing I'll tell you is when I have in the past forgotten to do one of these things, my spirit guides have awakened me in the middle of the night to go and do it, even having me drive back and walk back to ceremonial spots to release the directions. Some people's spirit guides give them a pass. Some don't. Mine do not. Seriously, mine do not. So I always make sure. And then if I make a mistake, when they come back to me and say, you didn't release the directions, you need to go back and get that ash, you need to do that, I always listen because I've learned the hard way. The candles. So it's a great question. So we're finished with our class. It's pretty how it's two-toned. Pretty. So there are a lot of magical practitioners who like to just let their candles burn down, especially after a reading, because they feel like they want to just let the energy conclude itself. I personally have no problem blowing out a candle. I'm going to blow this one out now. And I always like to watch the direction the smoke rises. And I used to, when I would do readings for clients, we would watch the smoke together. I would say, okay, this is your smoke. So whatever direction it's going in, that tells you something about what you need to do now. So if this smoke is going due north, so this is about connection to spirit, ancestors, spirit guides, just affirming, the connection to the northern quadrant, which is exactly where we want to be when we're doing psychic work. If the smoke goes to the east, right, it's time for a new cycle, new beginning. Something needs to be started again. If the smoke goes to the west, there's still some emotional healing to be done, right? West is all about purification, surrender, water element. If the smoke goes to the south, the person may be angry. There may be some bottled up fire emotions happening there, or they may need to burn through something still. Maybe there's still some, latent fire emotion that didn't get processed in the reading. So I would say you've got some southern directional work to do, right? Like work with some of your fire oils, your fire herbs, work with your cloves, your cassia, your cardamom, your cinnamon, and use some of your fire resins and herbs and oils to sort of burn through some of that energy too. And then northeast is just sort of the combination, right? So it's a new beginning that's grounded and protected, right? Like a safe new beginning is how I would interpret a northeasterly smoke flow. So yeah, and we actually have a meme for that, Tracy. So Team SG, somewhere there's, from the old days, there's my where is your smoke meme. So if we can't find it, it's probably hidden in like one of in Full Moon group or something. But if we can't find it, we'll remake it for you. Because I also want to get you that brainwave meme. And I think there's one other meme I want to make for you too. So we'll get all that done for you. And up for you in the next couple of days. We'll find it for you. Not to worry. It's fun, right? And that's, again, another fun, teachable, you guys as healers, like these are all just little bits and pieces of things that you can teach and share other people too as you do your healing work. So as I teach these things to you, take them and share them. You know, these are things that can really, really help people. So it's been my pleasure. Thank you we started a little late with our technical challenges, but we made it work. I'm so glad you were here. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I will propose some talking points for part 2, which will probably have to wait about a month to do part 2 for you, but maybe that's good. We've got so much other stuff happening right now, so we'll probably look to mid-August to position part 2 for you. I'm really glad you enjoyed this one, you guys. Was it in pop, Cindy? It may have been. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. We'll find it. I don't even know if it was good. You know, back in the old days, I was doing a lot of our memes. Fortunately, I have graphic designers to help me now. My skill set is okay, but it's not. I look back at some of those early memes and I'm like, oh God, don't judge me. Don't judge me. You're very welcome. It was my pleasure to be here with you guys. And I hope this was helpful for you. It's kind of it's not a traditional psychic development, you know what I mean? But I think there's something to be said for that too. And because I think so much of psychic development is really more about interdimensional awareness than anything else, understanding that reality is holographic. And so everything that you're looking for is so fucking close to you that you'd be so frustrated if you could see it. I think that's the one thing takeaway I can tell you from my near-death experience and ayahuasca journeys. You get so frustrated when you realize how close you are right now. But it lets you go back to your daily life and have some hope. You know, your partner can change. You know what I mean? Your life can change. You can experience prosperity. You can experience health. You can get your vision back, right? But it's like, it's all right there. And once you realize it's right there, you're not going to be so quick to give up your power anymore. You know, and you might be a little bit more inspired to be diligent and maintain your practice, because you have to keep your energy flow up all the time. All the time. You can't let it dip. That's the one challenge. You know, if this was easy, everybody would do it. People look at me and they're like, you make it look so easy. And it's like, dude, it's not easy. It's a conscious choice all the time. I can watch news and get pissed too, and then let my vibe drop, and then I'm not good to anybody, right? I can get in a fight with somebody on Facebook and call them names and then let my vibe drop, and then I'm not good to anybody. And so it's a conscious choice all the time of like, no, that if I go that route, my vibe's gonna drop and I'll lose my gifts. So it's not worth it to me. I'm not gonna pick that battle. Do you know what I mean? I'm gonna constantly choose to move into a higher evolutionary state. And with that comes health, happiness, peace, a strong relationship, you know, healthy family, productive relationships, you know, that are functional and loving. But that's a choice, man. You gotta make that choice in every moment. Do I want to go there? Because I know if I go there, I lose it all. Is it worth it? Not for me. I always tell my kids, make good choices today. That's what the tank top that we make next needs to say. It needs to say, make good choices today. Should I fight with that person on Facebook? Should I ask my mother what she thinks of my clothes? No. All right, cheers, you guys. I know, I hear you. Cheers, cheers, cheers. So I hope to see you in half an hour for a beautiful new moon ritual. I'm going to talk about new moons and eclipses. So if you're ready for that, I will have lots to talk to you about when that time comes. So I'll see you in half an hour. Go get some tea and go to the bathroom. And thank you for paying such close attention for the last 90 minutes. It was really, truly my pleasure to be with you guys today. I loved it. I'm glad you did too. I'll see you soon.